E.N.D here. Lorwyn Eclipse will rekindle the essence of both Lorwyn's radiant light and Shadowmoor's consuming darkness. In this world, creatures embody both sides of their nature, joyful and full of life, yet capable of transforming into darker, more twisted reflections of themselves. This set proudly brings back all the beloved tribes that made the original Lorwyn block a fan favorite, from Kitkin and Merfolk to Goblin and Elves, along with the return of the iconic elemental incarnations. Designed as callbacks to their Lorwyn roots, these special elemental incarnations will feature the return of a popular and powerful mechanic, Evoke. Evoke is a keyword ability that allows a player to pay an alternative cost for a creature spell that possesses this ability. However, if the evoke cost is paid, the creature is sacrificed when it enters the battlefield. Evoke allows you to play the spell for its evoke cost rather than paying its mana cost, but if you do that, you have to sacrifice it when it comes into play. This enables the player to pay the cheaper cost or just get the creature's enters the battlefield or leaves the battlefield ability. But how do you play Evoke? Let's build our battlefield and let's cast Emptiness for 2 hybrid mana, black and white. 3/5. Enters the battlefield. If 2 white was spent to cast it, return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. If 2 black was spent to cast it, put 3 -1/-1 counters on up to 1 target creature. Evoke for 2 hybrid mana, black and white. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pay the evoke cost, 2 white in my case. Any spell with evoke, it's a normal spell, therefore when casted, it will go in this deck. There can be a counter, there can be a response, nothing happens, and emptiness will hit the battlefield. When emptiness enters the battlefield, if 2 white was spent to cast it, return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. If 2 black was spent to cast it, put 3 -1/-1 counters on up to 1 target creature. In this case, I spent 2 white, the evoke cost, to cast emptiness. Therefore, I will return a target creature card with mana value 3 or less from my graveyard to the battlefield, and I'm going to choose Sephiroth. Because I cast emptiness using the evoke cost, when it enters the battlefield, I need to sacrifice it. Scenario 2. I'm going to cast again emptiness, but this time instead of paying its evoke cost, I'm going to pay its full cost, 4 and 2 hybrid mana, black and white. Any spell that has the evoke mechanic, if you pay the evoke or the full mana cost, it's a normal spell, therefore when casted, it will go in the stack. There can be a counter, there can be a response, nothing happens, and emptiness will hit the battlefield. When emptiness enters the battlefield, if 2 white mana was spent to cast it, return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. If 2 black mana was spent to cast it, put 3 -1/-1 counters on up to 1 target creature. In this case, because I spent 6 mana, let's assume that I spent 2 generic mana, 2 white mana, and 2 black mana. Therefore, I will return a target creature card from my graveyard to the battlefield, Voice of Victory, and put 3 -1/-1 counters on up to 1 target creature. Some notes: casting a creature by paying its evoke cost will result in 2 enters the battlefield abilities, the sacrifice ability from the evoke, and whenever another ability the creature has. The creature's controller chooses in what order to put them on the stack. Both abilities can be responded to as normal. Evoke doesn't change the timing of when you can cast the creature. If you could cast that creature spell only when you could cast a sorcery, the same is true for casting it with Evoke. If a creature spell cast with Evoke changes controllers before it enters the battlefield, it will still be sacrificed when it enters the battlefield. Similarly, if a creature cast with Evoke changes controllers after it enters the battlefield but before its sacrifice ability resolves, it will still be sacrificed. When you cast a spell by paying its evoke cost, its mana cost doesn't change. You just pay the evoke cost instead. Effects that causes you to pay more or less for a spell will cause you to pay that much more or less while casting it for its evoke cost. That's because they affect the total cost of the spell, not its mana cost. Whether evoke sacrifice ability triggers when the creature enters the battlefield depends on whether the spell's controller choose to pay the evoke cost, not whether they paid it, if it was reduced or otherwise altered by another ability, for example. If you're casting a spell without paying its mana cost, you can't use its evoke ability. So that's how you play Evoke. It's an interesting return for standard. Leave me a comment below. Are you excited for Lorwyn Eclipse? And as always, subscription button is here. Subscribe to my channel for more and more interesting videos about Magic the Gathering and the collectible world. Liliana.